Hello, everyone. In my previous lecture, I had introduced the topic odontogenic cysts. Now, today I'll be speaking about dentigerous cyst or follicular cyst. Now, sometimes in exams, just to confuse you all, they change the name of the cyst. For example, instead of writing directly dentigerous cyst, they write follicular cyst and they expect that you know the other names of the cyst. So you're supposed to know that follicular cyst is the other name for dentigerous cyst. Now, in my previous lecture, I had explained you where all these cysts are located and how do we identify them on a radiograph. In this lecture, we will be studying dentigerous cyst in detail. So this is a picture showing you the dentigerous cyst. You can see that this is associated with an impacted tooth. Now, always dentigerous cyst is associated initially with the crown of an impacted, embedded, or unerupted tooth. If we classify dentigerous cyst, according to etiology, it falls under developmental cyst. According to the classification based on origin, it falls under that cyst which is derived from the reduced enamel epithelium. It is the most common type of developmental cyst. 20% of all jaw cysts, 10% of impacted teeth form dentigerous cyst, 1.44 cysts of every 100 unerupted teeth, usually associated with permanent teeth. Now, how do we define dentigerous cyst? It is an odontogenic cyst that surrounds the crown of an impacted tooth. It is caused by fluid accumulation between the reduced enamel epithelium and the enamel surface, resulting in a cyst in which the crown is located within the lumen. Now, this particular paragraph is very important. It explains the entire dentigerous cyst, and if you know this definition well, you can actually explain the entire topic properly. Now, there are few things I want you all to understand, which is what is reduced enamel epithelium. To cut it short, when inner enamel epithelium, stellate reticulum, and outer enamel epithelium they combine together, they form what is known as reduced enamel epithelium. So basically, your enamel organ is going to form your reduced enamel epithelium, and the tooth is going to be below. So, reduced enamel epithelium will form a layer just on the enamel. Then the dental follicle is actually placed outside of the reduced enamel epithelium, and in this cyst, in the dentigerous cyst, the fluid is collecting between reduced enamel epithelium and the enamel surface. So now I've put a small chart just so that it eases your understanding that what are the structures forming what part of the dentigerous cyst. For example, reduced enamel epithelium, which is epithelial in origin, it is going to form the epithelial lining of the cyst. It is a true cyst, so it is going to have an epithelial lining. Dental follicle is going to form the connective tissue part, which is the fibrous connective tissue wall of the cyst, and fluid will be collected between reduced enamel epithelium and the enamel. This will be the content of the lumen. So, in my last lecture, I had discussed the elements of the cyst. Here, I have listed the element of the lumen, which is going to be a serous fluid or the transudate. Moving on, now, this is a very important question, especially for the postgraduate students. Undergraduate level, generally, you not ask this question. How does the separation between the reduced enamel epithelium and the enamel take place? So, basically, pressure is exerted by the erupting tooth on the impacted follicle. Obstruction of the venous outflow takes place, because of which there is increased hydrostatic pressure. rapid transitation of the serum across the capillary walls. The fluid accumulates in the weakest area between the reduced enamel epithelium and enamel. So basically, the fluid, it is accumulating because of this pressure into the reduced enamel, between the reduced enamel epithelium and the enamel. Now sometimes you could be asked a question, the examiner could ask you, why is the follicle not separating, why is the reduced enamel epithelium separating from the enamel? Because please note, very important point, the reduced enamel epithelium and the enamel don't have a very strong junction between them. That is the weakest portion. So it is just like how water collects between a wallpaper and a wall. Exactly that is happening. The wall being your enamel and the wallpaper being your reduced enamel epithelium. I have a very nice diagram showing you exactly what is happening, and it has been labeled very well. You can take a snapshot of this and you can use it in your exams for writing an answer. You can draw it yourself and label it. This will make the examiner understand that you understood the topic very well. Moving on, one very important thing which you need to understand is in a dentigerous cyst, particularly, the crown is present within the lumen and the roots are outside. So it's like the cyst is surrounding the entire crown structure. Now, where is it attaching? The capsule of the cyst, which is the connective tissue capsule, it attaches at the cemento enamel junction. So on the right hand side above, there is an image which shows you exactly how the attachment is taking place of the cyst. Now, moving on to the clinical features. So, we've studied the introduction of dentigerous cyst. We've understood the definition. We've understood why the fluid is collecting between the reduced enamel epithelium and the enamel. Now, we are moving on to the clinical features of dentigerous cyst. A dentigerous cyst may also be found enclosing a complex compound odontome or involving a supernumerary tooth. So, this is an extra point which we need to know. The most common sites, mandibular and maxillary third molar and maxillary cuspid areas, since these are the most commonly impacted teeth. Most lesions present in second and third decades. Male is to female is 3 is to 2, the ratio between males and females affected. Most dentigerous cysts are solitary, that is, they occur alone. Although bilateral and multiple cysts could be seen in association with cleidocranial dysplasia. The dentigerous cyst is potentially capable of becoming an aggressive lesion. You should note this. Cystic fluid is thin, watery, yellow fluid, occasionally blood tinged. So, this could be asked in your viva that what is the cystic fluid like? So, this is what it is like. Now, expansion of bone does occur in this cyst, which causes facial asymmetry. In cases of extreme growth, it could cause displacement of teeth, root resorption, and pain. Now, there is this picture which shows us the gross specimen of a dentigerous cyst involving a maxillary canine. Again, maxillary canine could be one of those teeth which are most commonly impacted. The cyst has been cut open to show the cyst to crown relationship. Now, the radiographic features, we are going to move on to that. Here in the first picture, it shows an unerupted molar with a circumscribed radiolucency around the crown. So you can check out here, you can see this. In the second picture, premolar with dentigerous cyst producing displacement of some of the adjacent teeth, which is quite visible. Another question which could be asked to you is, how do you differentiate between a normal dental follicle and a dentigerous cyst? So, normal follicle is 3 to 4 millimeters, and a dentigerous cyst is more than 5 millimeters. Dentigerous cysts can be classified into three different radiographic patterns, which are central variety, where the crown is enveloped symmetrically from CEJ to CEJ. Then there is this lateral type, where on one side the follicle is shifted so that it seems to look as if it is moving laterally. Circumferential type, the entire tooth is enveloped by the cyst, similar to the envelopmental type of odontogenic keratosis. Like it starts to look as if the entire tooth is inside the radiographic pattern, the radiolucency. Then there's this picture which is showing you the central type. You can appreciate cemento enamel junction to cemento enamel junction is the radiolucency. Here, circumferential type, wherein it looks as if the entire tooth is inside the radiographic in the histologic features, the thin connective tissue wall is there. Then there is this thin layer of stratified squamous epithelium. Retipegs are absent except in cases that are secondarily infected. The connective tissue wall is composed of a very loose fibrous connective tissue of a sparsely collagenized myxomatous tissue, islands of odontogenic epithelium which are inactive. If active, then it can lead to the formation of ameloblastoma. Here you can see a picture wherein the lining is exhibiting a thin stratified squamous epithelium without retipeg formation and a capsule which is pointed by arrow, red colored arrow, of dense fibrous connective tissue. This is a picture showing you a non-inflamed dentigerous cyst which shows a thin, non-keratinized epithelial lining. You can appreciate that there is no retiridges or retipeg formation. Here it is an inflamed dentigerous cyst which shows thicker epithelial lining with hyperplastic retiridges. The fibrous cyst capsule shows a diffuse chronic inflammatory infiltrate. So Russian bodies could also be seen within the lining epithelium. This could be a viva question. They could ask you where are they present, so you have to say they're present in the lining epithelium. They could also ask you what do they look like, so you can say peculiar, often curved hyaline bodies with variable stainability which are of uncertain origin. So keratin like products, hematogenous origin could be one of them, and secretory product of odontogenic epithelium proposed to be secreted by odontogenic epithelium within the cyst. Now, mucus secreting cells in the lining, stratified squamous epithelium could be present. Also, respiratory epithelial lining could be present. Sebaceous cells in the connective tissue wall and lymphoid follicles with germinal centers could also be appreciated in this cyst. Now, these are pictures of mucus cells which can be seen within the epithelial lining. Now, some syndromes which are associated with dentigerous cyst, again a viva question, which are cleidocranial dysplasia, which I had mentioned before, Marutex-Lamy syndrome, multiple basal cell nevus syndrome. Now, what are the possible complications associated with dentigerous cyst? First, ameloblastoma, either from the lining epithelium or the rests of odontogenic epithelium in the wall of the cyst. Epidermoid carcinoma from the same two sources, mucoepidermoid carcinoma from the lining epithelium. Now, here we can appreciate the ameloblastomatous change of the lining epithelium of a dentigerous cyst. Such changes are identical to those commonly observed in unicystic ameloblastoma. So, when we will be discussing ameloblastoma, at that time I will explain you this point in detail. Now, there is this very important criteria which is known as Vickers and Gorlins criteria. You can take a screenshot of this. Now, this is a criteria which is important for a cyst to go on to become a ameloblastoma or a neoplasia. So, in reviewing the histologic changes which occur in the dentigerous cyst, as a premonitory manifestation of ameloblastoma. Vickers and Gorlin have stressed that hyperchromatism of basal cell nuclei, palisading with polarization of basal cells, and cytoplasmic vacuolization with intercellular spacing of the lining epithelium, when observed together, are manifestations of impending neoplasia. So I hope you must have understood dentigerous cyst. In case you have any questions, you can ask them in your comment section. Please subscribe, follow, and share so that I am able to teach more and more people. Thank you.